James once again. Okay, so today's part of the journey with Natty Mark is called Andrew Watson and After. So we're looking at the history of black footballers in Britain. When we think about pioneering black footballers, we think of such people as Viv Anderson, who in 1978 became the first black player to win a full cap for England. Now, Laurie Cunningham had been the first to win a cap for the under-21 team. But Vivian Anderson, who played for Nottingham Forest, was the first to win a full England cap. And we think of people like Justin Fashanu and John Barnes, Cyril Regis, all these players who came to prominence in the 70s and early 80s. But let's go further back to the 19th century. Let's start with this man here, Andrew Watson. This isn't the greatest of pictures, but if you go online, you can get a smaller photo which will give you a much clearer image. Andrew Watson. Okay, he's quite unique in football and in black history in that his white father supported him. Born in Guyana. Now, when we think of Guyana, we think of characters such as Rudolph Dunbar, the man here. He kind of was a journalist and a musician and educator. Came to England in the 1930s, covered the war between Ethiopia and Italy, wrote for the New Musical Express, the legendary British music newspaper, because he was he played a clarinet, and he set up in this country the first ever clarinet school in the 30s. He studied in New York, with the same school, the Juilliard School of Music, where people like Miles Davis and Nina Simone studied. After the war, so he was one of the black journalists. As there was the approach of America into the Second World War, there's this massive campaign in the black community, especially amongst the black press, to have accredited black journalists, because white journalists weren't covering the contribution that black soldiers made. So in the First World War, there was only one accredited black journalist. So newspapers like the Chicago Defender, which was one of the big black newspapers of the time, generated this campaign to have more black journalists, and he was one of them. So he covered such as the D-Day landings, one of the most famous of the war battles. Okay, and then after the war, he became the first first black conductor of the Berlin Philharmonic and London Philharmonic orchestras. Also conducted orchestras in America, in Poland, in Russia. A real pioneering figure. So that gives you kind of a little kind of insight into the contribution that Guyanese made. So Andrew Watson, as I said, he was born in Guyana. A white father. His mother was a local woman. He grew up learning Dutch, because at that time Guyana was called Dutch Guyana, which was first colonised by the Dutch. Okay, so he came to Scotland with his father and his sister. When his father died, he left them thousands of pounds, which means that he could live kind of independently. So he'd been educated in grammar schools, went to Glasgow University. So not only was he well off financially, but he was also well educated. While he was at Glasgow University, he got into sports, into football. So he played for Queen's Park, which is one of the first clubs and one of the biggest clubs in Britain at the time. And he was an amateur. We're going to look at someone after who was seen as a first black professional, but he was an amateur, so he had to work at the same time. So he became an engineer. He took exams so he could go into engineering. So he's actually seen as the first ever black footballer in this country, and he went on to actually represent Scotland. He was capped by the Scottish national team on 3 occasions. So there we have Andrew Watson, who, as I say, is seen as the first black footballer in this country. So long before Viv Anderson, as I said, who was capped by England in 1978. In the 19th century, there was Andrew Watson. Okay, as I said, he was seen as the first black footballer. Okay, but as I say, he was amateur status. There was a period when he went to when he played in England for one of the teams in England, and the jury is still out on whether he was actually paid while he was there or whether he received expenses. But anyway, he's seen as the first black footballer in Britain. Okay, then we go on to Arthur Wharton, whose life story is, we might say, almost the opposite of his. So Andrew Watson came from a more privileged background. Arthur Wharton. Okay, so his father was part Grenadian and part Scottish, but the Grenadian part is that he was actually born there, of Scottish parentage. And when we think of Grenada, I always think of this person first, Theo Marichaud. Theo Marichaud, journalist, activist, involved in setting up some of the first kind of literary and educational projects in Grenada. And the thing that he's most famous for is he's known as the father of West Indian Federation. So he thought that come independence, that the Caribbean islands would have a stronger foot in the international world if they came together. So this is something that he fought for, and he actually did see the realization of it. The thing is that it crumbled a few years later, but by that time he'd passed on. So he was there to actually see it's kind of come to fruition, and it's kind of good that he passed on before it kind of broke up. So that's the thing that Theo Marichaud is known for as a father of a federation. And when I think of Grenada, I always think first of Theo Marichaud. So Arthur Wharton. So one of his parents was born in Grenada of Scottish parentage. Another was from the Fanti royalty. Now the Fanti are part of the Akan. Now in an earlier lesson, we looked at the Ashanti when we looked at pre-colonial statehood. Now the Ashanti are part of a larger group called the Akan, and the Fanti are part of that also. And Ghana is my ancestry. So if you look around the room, you'll see the Ghana flag. See it on the window there. You'll see it on this kind of pendant here. You'll see its largest manifestation there, and this one here. This, my son is now a teenager, but this is something that he done for me when he was in junior school. The teacher had asked him to paint a flag or draw a flag of their choice, and he done Ghana and gave that to me when he came back from school. So that is my ancestry, and that's why you see Ghana, the Ghanaian flag everywhere. Okay, so Arthur Wharton. So he comes to this country and lives most of his life up in the north. He plays for teams like Darlington, Preston North End, Newcastle District, Stockport. But not only was he a footballer, but he's also an athlete. He held the record for the 100 yards dash. This was before went metric. It was in yards, and he'd done it in 10 seconds. He's also a cyclist. He's also a cricketer, and also became a cricket coach. But his major sporting exploits are focused on football, where he was a goalkeeper. I mean, he did play out on field sometimes, but he was mainly a goalkeeper. The sad thing is that kind of they reckon that he could have played for England, but racism stopped that. Later in life, he got into drink and ended up died penniless in an unmarked grave. But there's been a recent campaign up in the north, especially in Darlington, which was the first team he played for, the first place he lived, to have his to have a proper marker made of him and to give him the salute that he deserves as the first black professional footballer. So that's Arthur Wharton. Okay. We tend to think of football as a man's domain. So let's introduce a couple of women who have made massive contributions. This is Hope Powell. Hope Powell. Okay, so she first played for England when she was 16, and went on to play for England for 15 years. In her early 30s, she then went into management and managed the England team, the England women's team, for 15 years. As a player, she played in the FIFA championships. As a coach, she took England to the World Cup. She's one of the kind of great figures in a women's football in this country. She's also got the highest coaching award, and she actually set up a team because she played for teams like Millwall and Fulham, and she set up a team in Bromley, and they amalgamated with Croydon, and she's currently manager of the Hove and Albion, the Brighton and Hove women's football team. So even though she's no longer the manager of England and obviously her playing days are over, she's still involved managing the Brighton and Hove women's team. Okay, so that's Hope Powell. Because we tend to think about, and kind of when we think about black pioneers as football is concerned, it's always the men that are spoken of. So this is a chance to give a big up to Hope Powell. Okay, and this woman here, Fatma Samora, she is the Secretary General of FIFA. Now, as you know, FIFA is the biggest international football association, and she is the Secretary General. So when the World Cups are celebrated, we need to celebrate her because this is part of her remit to organise the World Cups. She's Muslim from Senegal, and her history is in how can I say disaster alleviation. She worked for the UN for years, working in the various places where, kind of there's, famine and civil war and such things. She worked all over Africa doing this kind of work. She speaks at least 5 languages. So in 2016, she became the first ever woman to be Secretary General, and obviously the first ever black person to take that role. The only person higher than her in the organisation is the president. So you can see that she is kind of a really important figure in football. So although, we like to mention all the kind of, the big male stars, we have to remember that kind of women's football is emerging, and there are certain kind of trailblazing figures who we need to remember, as well as remembering people like Andrew Watson and Arthur Wharton. We need to remember people like Hope Powell and Fatma Samora. Thank you very much.